I'm going to read that again. That is 1 Samuel 1, verses 17 and 18. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, Let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. If you will allow me to use for a subject message to teach from on tonight, I would like to teach from believe beyond it. Believe beyond it. Believing God is something that every believer must do. Every believer must believe God. Somewhere at some time in your walk with God, you are going to be faced with having to believe God. You're going to have to believe God for a healing. You're going to have to believe God for one of your loved ones. You might even have to believe God for yourself in an area that you are struggling in. You're going to have to believe God for it. There are some things that, we all face that, there are challenges to us, but the closer we get to God, we find out how much more we need God in those areas. And so therefore, we find it more beneficial to ourselves to be able to trust him in the things that we ourselves cannot do. Because we all have those things, and we're leaning and we're trusting and we're depending on his word to make itself known unto us, that we can have victory in that area or over that particular thing that we are dealing with. But with me saying that, believing God is something that every believer must do. Now, the second thing that I'm getting ready to say, it might take you a minute to ponder on it, but I will come back to this statement as we go further into our message. Why you believe God is something that you choose. Oh, think about what Pastor Fran just said. Believing God is something that every believer must do. Why you believe God is something that you choose. Again, I said I will come back to that statement. And I hope you wrote it down for those of you who are like, what does she mean by that? We're going to come back to that. Why you believe God. Why you believe God is something that you choose. If you want to please God, believing God is something that you must do. But why you believe God is something that you choose. And tonight we want to look at Hannah. And our text, and just to give you a little bit of backstory, Hannah was barren. She was not able to conceive children. But Hannah was married to a man named Elkanah or Elkanah. Depends on which translation that you are reading it or hearing it out of. And he had another wife. And typically in the custom of that day and time, if your wife, he loved Hannah, but Hannah was not able to have children. So it was custom that if your wife could not have children, that was grounds for you to be able to have another wife who could possibly bear you children. So he had another wife, and his other wife, she had children. And so therefore she would consistently and on a constant basis, she would torment Hannah about her infertility. And over again, she would taunt Hannah. And I'm sure it was in part because Elkanah, he loved Hannah. And the Bible even tells us that. It doesn't tell us how he necessarily felt about his other wife, but and her name was Peninnah. It does not tell us how he felt about her, but it did take time to mention that he loved Hannah and he favored Hannah. And it was, I'm sure Peninnah dealt with the fact that she was only there because of what Hannah could not give him on her own. And so therefore, I'm sure she was internalizing the fact that she was only there to bear him children and that he loved Hannah more than he loved her. And he loved Hannah so much that every year that they would go up to offer sacrifice unto the Lord, that even though Hannah did not have any children, he would still give Hannah a greater portion than he would Penina, though she had the children. And Penina had to watch this every year. And I'm sure she would wonder within herself, what's so good about Hannah? What's so great about Hannah? I'm the one that gave him the children, but he still gives her more than he gave me, or he gives me and my children. And Hannah had to Hannah had to be a woman of God. Let's just make that plain right there. Hannah had to be a woman of God, because the Bible specifically tells us that every year, at the time that it was at the time that it was time to go worship, every year at this time when it was, they were preparing to go worship, that would be the very moment that Penina would start taunting Hannah. Do you not know that the enemy is very strategic at, watch this, when and where he taunts you? He knows the right, it seems like he just knows the right time to do it. And it's almost like he coming right here at this time. Can anybody else relate to that? I know when I get to this part right here, when I get to decreeing and declaring, when I get to believing, when I get my mind made up, I'm going to really believe God. This is when the enemy comes. I got my mind made up that today I'm going to get up and I'm going to worship, and I'm going to just, keep my mind on the things of God. And then it seems like every distraction that could come possibly comes. You get a phone call, or you look at something on your phone, or whatever happens, you get a letter in the mail, and it's something that's trying to demand your attention be taken away from what you have purposed in your heart to do. And again, Hannah had to be a woman of God, because it tells us that every year that they would go up to worship would be the very time that Penina would start taunting her. Do you know how many people said, I'm not going to church because of this, I'm not going to church because of that, and I'm not going to do this because of this, and I'm not going to do that because of that? But nevertheless, Hannah did not have that mentality. Hannah knew that when it was right, I'm sure she was like bracing herself for it. She didn't know exactly what Penina was going to say, or she didn't know exactly what Penina was going to do, but she knew that it was about time, and she knew when and where that her enemy would strike her. And it says that it was right there at the time that they would get ready to go worship. And Hannah could have easily and justifiably said, I'm not going to worship today. I'm not even going to get ready to go. I'm not even going to take this trip, because I don't want to look at her little snotty nosed children. I don't want to look at her just, having them in their best apparel while I'm sitting over here and I don't have anything. Hannah said, but there's something that keeps drawing me. There's something that keeps unctioning me to go, even though I don't have what I'm believing God for. I don't even have the very thing that I desire, but I'm still going. Is there anybody at Life Meets the Word on tonight that says, I don't even have what I've been believing God for? I don't even have what I've been desiring from God, but there's something in me. I got something that keeps telling me I should go. I have something that keeps telling me that I still got a reason to tell him thank you. I still got a reason to tell him how good he is, and I don't even have it. I can't even touch it. I don't even have it. And Hannah had to, no doubt, watch this. She had to, no doubtably get beyond how she was feeling, because you can imagine how she felt having this woman to taunt her right before the worship service. Oh God. Right before I go, or I get myself ready to go into the presence of the Lord, is right when she comes at me. Now, all these other times that we're just sitting at the house, she don't bother me. But it's right when I get my mind made up and I'm getting ready to go into the presence of the Lord. What do you do then? And she no doubtably had to get beyond how she felt. And though sometimes things feel one way, they have a greater purpose. Oh my God. Sometimes I have to get over how it feels. I can't get lost in how I feel. Can anybody else relate to that? I'm dealing with some stuff that I can't get lost in how I feel. Because Hannah could have got lost in how Peninnah was making her feel to the point that it affected her relationship with God. But I believe we have a body of Christ here tonight that says, though I feel the way I feel, and though this thing keeps taunting me as if it's not going to go away, I cannot let it affect my service to God. This is why I'm here tonight, Pastor Fran. If I just be truthful with you, I didn't feel like it, but I chose not to let what I'm feeling affect my service to God. I chose not to let what I'm going through communicate to God that I don't even trust Him. This is why I came tonight. I came despite how I feel. I came despite what I'm going through. I came despite what I've been believing God for that I don't even have. When it looks so far off, I can't even see no signs of it. And if I just be honest with you, looking at my natural circumstances, Pastor Fred, it looks impossible, but I'm still here. I'm still here. And again, the enemy is very strategic in two areas. He's strategic when and where, timing and location. Oh God. Hannah was a woman that her relationship with God had extended beyond the scheduled time of worship. It had to, because there's no way that this woman is taunting me and I have not laid hands on her. And I probably wouldn't have laid hands on her in Jesus' name. But Hannah kept her composure. Despite everything that Peninnah was doing to her, that tells me that Hannah had a relationship with God that extended beyond the normal church service that they would attend. Come on here. Hannah said, this does not have anything to do with a building. This does not have anything to do with a place or location. She said, this has everything to do with what I believe. Oh my God. So much to the point that she said, I'm sure. Watch this. If you're ever going to tap into something greater, if you're ever going to tap into the greater things of God, then you're going to have to do stuff other than just on Sunday. Oh God, you're going to have to do this Monday. You're going to have to do this Tuesday. You're going to have to do this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all the way up until Sunday. So by the time you get to church on Sunday, Sunday is just an extension of what you've been doing all week. No, I wasn't waiting for the scheduled time on Sunday, but I need for somebody to know that I had to do this today. I had to do this yesterday, the day before, and the day before that. I'm going to have to do it tomorrow and the next day following. So basically, when I get to Sunday, Sunday is only an extension of what I've been doing all week long. Your thank you cannot be scheduled to just be on Sunday. Come on here. Because I believe that we have a body of Christ that said, I've been dealing with some stuff that I just can't wait till Sunday. I can't wait till Sunday to tap in, as Tanya can say, to tap into my thank you. I just can't wait till Sunday to tell him how good he is. I can't wait till Sunday to tell him thank you. I can't wait till Sunday to do this. I can't wait till Sunday to worship. I can't wait till Sunday. Oh, it's spontaneous, because when I start to think about everything that he does for me, it'll just happen on its own. It schedules its own stuff. Does anybody else do that when you just think about his goodness? Matter of fact, not even his goodness. When you just think about who he is, it does not even schedule itself. It just, thank you, Lord. I don't even got it, but thank you. I can't even put my hands on it, but thank you. I don't even know. Watch this. Hannah was to the point that she didn't even know the details. She didn't know. All she knew is that this woman kept tormenting me, but her mind was made up. I'm still going to give God. I'm not going to let what Penina is doing to me. I'm not going to let what's happening in my life affect my service to God. Is that anybody else decree and declaration on the day? I'm not going to let what I'm dealing with, what I don't even have in my hands. What I know I'm believing God for it, but I don't yet have it in my hands to where I can touch it and do what I need to do with it. But I'm not going to let that affect my service to God. I'm going to still show up. And I know the enemy is going to come back and remind me of what I don't have. Come on here. How many of you know the enemy is going to do that? He does that right before worship. He does that right when you got your mind made up that you're going to serve God and you're going to give God everything you got. The first thing he's going to do is come remind you of what you don't have. Woo. And if you was really if you was really this deep in God, then it wouldn't be this way and it wouldn't be that way. But watch what we said earlier. Though sometimes things feel one way, they have a greater purpose. I just need for somebody to type it over in the chat section. This has a greater purpose. This has a greater purpose. Whatever your this is, your this has a greater purpose. I'm not even going to let it affect my service to God. I know how I'm feeling. I can't let my feelings, I can't get lost in my feelings right here, right now. I can't do that because it has a greater purpose. This is why I can't get lost in how I feel, because if I get lost in how I feel, I'm going to miss the greater purpose. Hannah has no child, but she's watching Penina with her child. And I'm sure she had to tell herself, it's gotta be something bigger. It's something bigger. It's something bigger. It has a greater purpose. And she continues to go to the house of God. Every scheduled time, she's there. She's there. She's there. But this one particular time when Penina is tormenting her, because I want to let you know, I want you to stop beating yourself up when you get tired. Come on here, because Penina had tormented Hannah so much, and Hannah had taken it and 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 taken it until the point that she became overwhelmed, and she could not even enjoy, oh God, she could not even enjoy what her husband was bestowing upon her. She could not even enjoy the worship because of how Penina taunted her. So therefore, she begins, and I want to talk to the people that sometimes beat yourself up for being human. Because sometimes I have to cry to express what I feel so I don't lay hands on nobody. So sometimes your cry was the best thing that you ever did. Oh God. No, don't underestimate my cry. That don't mean I'm soft. That don't mean I'm no pump. That don't mean my heart pump no Kool-Aid. It was better for me to cry than to end up in prison. So thank God that's all I did was cry. Praise the Lord, everybody. Thank God that's all I did was go away and get off by myself. And I had to wipe my tears and tell the Lord thank you. And I know that he has a greater purpose. So don't get my crying misunderstood. And at this particular time, Penina is taunting Hannah, and Hannah is tired now. She's tired. She's believing for something that she knows she can't make happen herself, but still yet I'm serving God. Is anybody else like that? I've been serving God, but I can't make this happen. And every time I turn around, the enemy of my condition is trying to remind me of what I don't have. And there's times I have to go off by myself and just cry. I just have to cry. I cried so I didn't fuss them out. And y'all know the word that rhymes with fuss. Just put a C in front of it. Thank God I cried instead of doing the other part of it. Thank God for that. Thank God I did that. And she goes off. And at this time, it was custom that the priest sits at the door and he watches the activity that goes on inside the house of worship. It was more so like the preacher. So he's sitting there and he's watching. And he's watching Hannah. And Hannah is pouring out her complaint to God. She's pouring out her complaint to God. She's telling God, she said, but listen at one of the first things that Hannah begins to say. Hannah brings into remembrance her relationship with God. Oh God. That's a powerful statement right there. Because Hannah, when she's talking to God, and she said, I think that's around verse 10. And it says, and she was in bitterness of soul and prayed unto the Lord and wept sore. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, watch this. She said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid. Oh God, right there at that spot, Hannah is telling God why she wants him to do it. Hannah said, God, I want you to do it. What I'm about, she has not even yet asked God what she was asking him for. She first of all tells God why she wants him to do it. Whew. Are we seeing that? If you are, give Pastor Fran a virtual hand wave, that you're reading the same thing that I'm reading. Because in this, she first of all, she tells God, she says, because I am your woman servant. She's basically saying, God, I am walking upright according to thy word. I am walking in your principles, God. And she said, I know something about the fact that you said you will not withhold any good thing from those that walk upright before you. So Hannah is bringing into remembrance, or she's letting God know that she knows who she is and why she is about to ask for what she is asking for. I came to ask anybody at Life Meets the Word, the thing that you want God to do first of all, do you know who you are to God? Whew. Do you know that you are a child of God and that you are in right relationship with God? And when you are in right relationship with God, you don't have to be shy and or timid about what you're asking your Father to do, because you know who you are. Hannah said, I am your servant. I am your handmaid. I am here to do the work. She said, I know that I've been created in your image to reflect the power of your word. Oh my God. She knew that she was asking a hard thing, but she was asking the God, her God, that is able to make the impossible things become possible. She said, first of all, she said, I'm your child. Watch this. She wasn't telling God that she was just somebody who casually visits the church. She said, God, I do this in the building as well as I do it in the house. I do it when this woman is tormenting me. I do it when I see it. I do it when I don't see it. I've even done it when I don't feel like it. Is that anybody I'm talking to on tonight? Says, God, I know who I am. I'm your servant. I've been doing this thing whether I've seen it or whether I haven't seen it. I've done it when people were watching, and I've done it in private. I've done it around the clock. Just not when I'm in front of people. And the kind of handmaid that Hannah is talking about, she's talking about a lifestyle of service and commitment. She's not talking about those casual saints that they just save on Sunday. Uh-oh. She's not talking about them kind of, no, that ain't what she's talking about. Hannah is talking about the kind of service to God when she sees it, when she doesn't see it, when she feels it, when she doesn't feel it. Hannah's talking about, she said, God, I'm your girl. She said, I do this when I see it, when I don't see it, when I feel it, when I don't feel it, when I have it, when I don't have it. God, I even do it when I can't even make it happen myself. I do it. But watch what she said. She said, look on the affliction of my hand, of thine handmaid. She said, I know I'm yours. Oh God. When you went to God and you asked God for what you was asking him for, did you ask him with the confidence of knowing that you are his? I'm gonna do my great nephew. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And she said, and remember me. We're still in verse 10. And she said, and forget not thine handmaid. She keeps telling God, I am yours. I'm yours. I'm yours. I'm yours. I'm yours. I'm yours. Are y'all seeing that with Pastor Frank? She said, I'm yours. I'm yours, God. I'm yours. I'm yours. So watch this. So basically, she's telling God, when you do it for me, because I am yours, it's like you doing it for yourself. Oh, God. Huh? This is part of why Hannah keeps reminding, not even that she's reminding God, but she's throwing that out there to let him know that, watch this, not that he needed to know, but she's saying it as a line of open communication to tell God, I'm yours. And God, when you do this for me, it's like doing it for yourself. Okay, wait a minute. Pastor Friend, where you going with this? Because I want to ask any of you right now, what would you not do for yourself if you could? Oh my God. Oh my God. What would you not do for yourself? Somebody type it over in the chat box. What would you not do for yourself? If you knew it was in your best interest, if you knew that it was going to prove, and if it was going to put you in a position that other people get to see and experience the power of your God, what would you not do for yourself? So she's reminding God, and she said, I'm yours. And she said, basically, when you do this for me, she said, God, it's like you doing it for yourself, because I'm gonna still stay connected. Oh my God. I'm gonna still have that same level of commitment that I had before I got it. I'm gonna still be coming to church. I'm gonna still be in your face, God. I'm gonna still be in your word. You can count on me to be in your word, God. You can count on me to be in your presence. But God, I need for you to do this, because sometimes it's hard for me to concentrate. Come on, let's just be honest. Sometimes, God, I'm struggling to concentrate and stay focused, because this thing is a sword to me. And if you look at how the Bible even talked about how Penina taunted her, it says severely, 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 sorely. So much so this woman had to go off and cry. But then before she asks God, but then she goes into that. She's reminding God of who she is in him. And she's basically saying, God, we are so intertwined. There is no way that when you do this for me, you're not doing it for yourself as well. Oh God. I just want to ask somebody the question. The thing that you've asked God to do, are you so intertwined with him that you didn't have to be reserved about asking him to do it, because you knew that when he did it for you, then all he was going to be doing was really doing it for himself, because you were still going to live that committed lifestyle that actually showed forth the power and the glory of God. So you just wasn't in it for the it. Oh God. I just wasn't asking God to do it for the it. I was asking God to do it for him. Woo! Oh God. Because sometimes the thing that we are asking God for is more so about the it than it is about God. But Hannah said, God, you don't have to worry. She said, because it's not about it. She said, this is why I keep showing up to church, because it ain't about it. This is why I keep giving, because it's not about the it. This is why I keep worshiping. This is why I keep living right, even when I want to take shortcuts and do other stuff. Is there anybody else that sometimes I wanted to take a shortcut, but because I was so intertwined with him that I didn't want to do anything to break that? So I stayed in lines with his word. Because what I was asking God for was beyond the it. You might be like, Pastor Friend, what you talking about? I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. Because it's beyond the it. I just want somebody to ask themselves the question, the thing that I've asked God for, what was it? Why was I really believing for it? Because sometimes if we're not careful, we're believing. Watch this statement that I'm going to make. And I'm going to ask Aretta to help me out. Aretta, first, type the statement, I believe God for it. Type that statement, Aretta. I believe God for it. Type that statement. I believe God for it. I believe God for it. I believe God for it. Now, Aretta, type the statement, I believe God. Oh my. Watch this. Can somebody tell me what changed? Look at the two statements Aretta typed over in the chat section. Yes. Woo! Come on, baby. She said your it changed. But look at what didn't change. Oh, God. Because sometimes we're not even conscious that we're believing God for it, but not even believing God. Because we only believe God for the it. And as soon as we get the it, we'll take off and start running the other way. Because watch this. It's the difference between believing God and believing God for it. Woo. If somebody caught that, give Pastor Fran a virtual hand wave and type it over, or either type it over in the chat section, because your it will always be changing, but your God won't ever change. And sometimes we're not even conscious of the fact that we are only believing God for. I'm believing God for the financial breakthrough. I'm believing God for the healing. I'm believing God for the deliverance. I'm believing God for my sons and my daughters. I'm believing God to grow my business. I'm believing God to grow my church. And watch this, my it is constantly changing, but I don't ever get anchored down in believing God. Whew. Because watch this, my believing God always has to be attached to an it. But when do we get to the point that my believing God is not even attached to it? It's just attached to the fact that it's his word and I believe it to be so. My belief in God is not always attached to an it. Whew, I just believe God. Oh my God. I just believe God. If that's good to somebody, just give Pastor Fran a virtual hand wave, because that helps us go back and assess our relationship with God. Do we believe God 10 toes down, or do we just believe God for the it? Because most of the time, if we're not careful, our believing God is always attached to an it. The it. But Hannah's belief in God was not attached to an it. I'm going to show you why and how. And scriptures are going to confirm that to us. Because you got to go to the place where you're believing God beyond the it. I just believe God. But watch this. I'd rather type this word for us. Details. 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 That's one of the biggest things that gets us as believers messed up. Details. Come on. Because whenever God sends a word, one of the first things that we will do is start to try to figure it out within our carnal mind. Can we just get some people to just be real? Well, how he gonna do it? And you know, I when and oh my God, like I need to know all the details, because the details make me feel more comfortable about what it is that I am asking or believing God for. But watch this. Okay, so here we go. And it says, and Hannah had asked God for this man-child. She's asked God for this man-child. And verse 12, I'm going to keep reading. And it says, and it came to pass, as she continued praying before the Lord. So Hannah kept praying. It don't tell us how long she kept praying. Hannah 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 kept praying. And Hannah spake in her heart. Keep moving down in the scripture. Eli actually thought Hannah was drunk. He thought she was drunk. Hannah said in verse 15, Hannah said, no, Hannah defended herself with respect, because she respected the fact that Eli was the priest. And she said, no, she said, no, she said, I'm not drunk. She said, I'm not one of those daughters of Belial. I'm not one of those people that, you know, no, that ain't me. She said, basically, she said, I'm so wounded. She said, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. And you find that in verse 15. She said, I'm a woman of a sorrowful spirit. And then she says, verse 16, she says, count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial. She said, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hereto. She said, I did not go to anybody else with this but the Lord. She said, I didn't get on my social media page, which they didn't have it back then, but I'm just using it in modern day time. She said, I didn't go to TikTok. I didn't go to Facebook. I didn't make no video about it. She said, I took it to the Lord. Oh, come on. That's something that we need to learn how to do as a culture of people, is take it to the Lord. Take it to the Lord. And she said, I poured my complaint out to the Lord. She said, let me put it in the hands of who I know can fix it. Not put it in the eyes of somebody who can comment on it. She said, let me put it in the hands of somebody that can fix it. But watch this. It says, then Eli, keep in mind about details. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. Eli didn't give her no details. Eli just gave her the word of the Lord. Oh my God. This was not the kind of prophecy that Elijah gave to the Shunammite woman, because we know that Elijah gave the Shunammite woman a time. Oh God. But here, this woman did not have any other details. She didn't have no details. All she had was the word of the Lord. This is what's letting us know that Hannah's believing God was not attached to an it, because Hannah left. Watch how Hannah left just by getting the words of the Lord. Hannah didn't have no details. Hannah didn't have no date. Hannah didn't have no, there was nothing that Samuel gave her but the word of the Lord. There was no details. There was no 30 days. There was no 45 days. There was no 60 days. There was none of that. He just gave her the word of the Lord. But watch this is what's going to let us know that Hannah was believing God, and her believing God was not attached to an it. Because watch what happened to Hannah after she got the word of the Lord with no details. And it said, and she said, verse 18, and she said, let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. Oh my God, is anybody else besides Pastor Fran seeing what happened? Because this is what's letting us know that Hannah's belief in God was not attached to the thing that she was asking God for. Hannah said, I just believe God, because as soon as she got the word, she didn't know if it was going to be 3 months. She didn't know if it was going to be 3 years. She didn't know if it was going to be 30 years. But the word of God says Hannah's countenance changed and she was no more sad. Not only, watch this, was Hannah sad, but Hannah was so depressed over this thing that she couldn't even eat. Woo! It says Hannah got up. Oh my God. Watch this. When your belief in God is not attached to an it's just a flat out, I believe God. I believe God. When it's not attached to an when you hear the word of the Lord, it's going to cause you to get up. It's going to cause you to eat, and it's going to change the way you looking. Woo! Oh my God. It's going to cause you to get up. It's going to cause you to eat, and it's going to change the way you looking. Just because she had the word, this is what lets us know that Hannah was just not believing God for it. She was believing God. Oh my God. She said, I believe God. I believe God. I believe God. She heard the word, and the word stirred up on the inside of her because she was believing God, and her belief in God was not attached to it. If he don't do it, I still believe him. If he do it, I believe him. If he want to do it another way, I believe him. Is that anybody else's testimony on tonight? I just believe God. And after hearing this word on tonight, I'm going to get up. I'm going to eat. I'm coming out of depression. And I'm going to stop walking around with the sad face, wanting somebody to ask me what's wrong. What's wrong with you? Ain't nothing wrong with me. I got the joy of the Lord because I got his word. Hannah said his word was good enough for me. I prayed his word was good enough for me. I want to know that anybody that says his word is good enough for me. I know it's been 6 months. I know it's been a year. I know it's been 12 months. I know it's been 18 months. I know it's been 24, 36, 48. I know it's been all that time, but I just believe God. And my belief in God is not attached to an it. My belief in God is rooted and grounded in the fact that he is a God that he cannot lie. Whatever he said, I'm going to make it good. If I got to go in there and give you some new ovaries, I'm going to make it good. If I got to go in there and dry up cells, I'll do whatever I got to do to make it good. If I got to do whatever I have to do, I'll do it. But we get ready to close, but I want to let you know why, to give you some further proof at why Hannah's belief in God was not attached to an it. Because as we keep reading, and it says, and they rose up early in the morning, verse 19, and worshiped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house in Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, which also, when they say they knew each other, that means that they did the husband and the wife thing, not the boyfriend and girlfriend thing. They did the husband and wife thing. Okay? They did covenant stuff. They did covenant intimacy that God honored. And watch what it says. In verse 19, and it says, and the Lord remembered her. Go back to what we said earlier. When Hannah was talking to the Lord and she was praying to the Lord, Hannah Hannah said, remember that handmaid. Remember I told you Hannah was reminding God of who? Romanda Basa, who she was to him. So when I told you that what basically Hannah was telling God was, she said, God, there is no way that you can do it for me and not do it for yourself, because I'm so intertwined with you, God. That as you do it for me, it's as if you are doing it for yourself. Because verse 19 says, and the Lord remembered Hannah, or her, talking about Hannah, with no details, no date, no time, no nothing. Wherefore it came to pass when the time was come. It didn't tell us how long she even had to wait. It says, wherefore it came to pass. Whenever you hear that it came to pass, most of the time that is a clear indication that there was a lapse in time between the time that it was spoken and the time that it was manifested. When the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, Hannah had a baby. The thing that was impossible, the thing that her adversary taunted her about, the thing that made her cry, because Hannah's belief in God was not attached to it. It was just the fact that Hannah said, I believe God. And you are in a better position when your belief in God is not attached to an it. Because I got to finish now. I gotta go a little bit faster. Hannah conceived, and she called his name Samuel. She called his name Samuel. Y'all excuse me, because earlier I brought Samuel in too quick. It was Eli that was the priest and not Samuel. So please forgive me for that. And she called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked him of the Lord. And her husband, it was time to go up to worship again. But the place that Peninnah used to taunt Hannah in, Hannah wasn't in that place no more. I came to tell somebody that when your faith is in God and it is not attached to an it, the place that your enemy taunted you and tormented you in, they not going to be able to taunt and torment you in that place when your, watch this, when your confidence and your faith in God is not attached to an it. And if we keep reading and we keep reading and we keep reading in the story, they kept going up to worship. And Hannah took the child and she did what she promised God that she was going to do, because she told God, she said, God, if you give me this child, she said, I will give him back to you. She said, because God, you just gave him for me so you could use him for yourself. Oh God, did y'all catch that? You gave him to me so you could use him for yourself. Because what Hannah was saying was, God, I'm your servant. And if you do it for me, it's like doing it for yourself. So all you're doing, God, is creating something that you can use for yourself. The thing that you've been asking God for, can he use it for himself? Or do you have plans for it? Because Hannah took Samuel after she got finished breastfeeding him. She took him to the temple as she promised. She took him to the temple as she promised. Watch this. and she left him there. Oh my God. This is what lets you know that Hannah's belief in God was not attached to the it, because of everything that she was asking God for was the very thing that she gave back to God and left it there. And I'm going to fast forward. And because she did that and she kept going back to the temple, and based upon what the scriptures tell us, she only at least saw her son once a year. Can you imagine only seeing your child once a year when you go up to worship and you can't even touch him like you want to, because now he is being trained as a priest? So the very thing that was yours is not even really yours, because now it's of service to the Lord that you can't even do what you want to do with it like you want to. Can you just imagine? And because she did that, because basically this is what lets us know about Hannah's dedication and commitment and lifestyle to God. Because watch this, I prayed for it. But it wasn't even about the it. It was about God performing his word. It wasn't about the it. It was about God performing his word. And because she did that, in my closing, because she did that, and Eli the priest saw her. Eli the priest saw her, and he watched her and Elkanah come up year after year. And she would, only thing she would do was she would bring him a new robe that she made for him year after year after year after year after year. And Eli tells her, because your belief was not attached to the it. Your belief was not attached to Samuel. God is going to bless you with some more children. And the Bible tells us that she had 3 more sons and 2 daughters. When your belief is not connected to an it, and your belief is rooted in the fact that you believe God, and when you are intertwined with God, that when God does for you, it's like him doing for himself. You put yourself in a position. You put yourself in a position. If you remember, I asked you the question, why you believe God is something that you choose. Because some people only have the faith to believe God when their belief in God is attached to an it. But Hannah said, I believe God because I know him to be true. I believe God because he's a man of his word. I believe God. This wasn't even a promise to her, people of God. This was something that she requested. And she said, I believe God. And I want to talk to the people that this ain't even about a promise. This is about something that you're requesting from God. Number 1, make sure that you know who you are in God. Because Hannah was confident that she was God's and God was hers. Not everybody can go to God with that level of confidence, because they live one way on Sunday and they live another way all the other days of the week. Sunday is their only scheduled time to be a believer. But Hannah said, I do this every day, riding or walking, 10 toes down. I'm Team Jesus. Then Hannah was specific about her request. Hannah specifically asked for a man child. Hannah stayed faithful. Number 3, Hannah stayed faithful. With or without it, she stayed faithful. In my closing, that's the biggest thing right there. Irarabasaya. Can you be considered faithful? Can you be considered as faithful with it as you were without it? Will you still be seeking God? Will you still be in his face? I'm not talking about on occasions or when you feel like it. Because there's been some of us that's been in his face when we ain't even felt like it because we knew he was the only way. Come on, is that truthful about it? But now, God, I'm going back and rehaving this conversation with you. Because I know who I am now. I know who you are. I know who I am. And doing it for me is like doing it for yourself. And God, you can trust me with it. Just like you could when I didn't have it. I'm going to still show up. I'm going to still be of service. Because my belief goes beyond the it.